Think about the last time you learned something that you couldn't unlearn. Maybe it was understanding why the sky is blue, or realizing that every tree you see was once a tiny seed, or grasping why ice floats on water. Once you understood it, really understood it, you couldn't go back to not knowing. The interesting thing is, that's not just a figure of speech. Your brain, physically, isn't the same as it was before. And right now, as these words reach you, something similar is happening. Let's start with something straightforward. Your brain is made of about 86 billion neurons. Now, that number is thrown around a lot. But what does it actually mean? Each of those neurons connects to thousands of others, creating something like 100 trillion connections. These connections, called synapses, are where the interesting stuff happens. They're not static. They're changing all the time, strengthening when they're used, weakening when they're ignored, even creating entirely new pathways. Here's where it gets fascinating. Every time you understand something new, you're literally rewiring these connections. It's not a metaphor. Scientists can measure this. When someone learns to juggle, for instance, scans show increased gray matter in areas of the brain that handle visual and motor coordination. Stop juggling for a few months, and those changes start to fade. The brain is constantly sculpting itself based on what it does. But understanding something, really grasping a concept, does something different than just learning a skill. It creates what we might call an irreversible shift. Think about optical illusions. Take one of those images that looks like a vase until someone points out it's also two faces looking at each other. The moment you see both, you can't unsee them. Your brain has created a new pattern of recognition. The visual information hasn't changed, but your internal model of what you're looking at has expanded. This happens because of how the brain processes information. It's not like a computer that stores data in neat files. Instead, it creates models, patterns of expectation about how the world works. When you encounter something new, the brain doesn't just record it. It tries to fit it into existing patterns. If it doesn't fit, the brain has to do something harder. It has to restructure those patterns. That restructuring is what we experience as understanding. Let's use a simple example. Imagine you've never thought about why ships float. You might have a vague sense that they just do, maybe because they're shaped right or made of the right materials. But then someone explains displacement. The ship pushes water out of the way, and if the weight of that displaced water is more than the weight of the ship floats. Suddenly, you understand not just ships, but why a steel needle sinks, but a steel ship floats. Why you feel lighter in a pool. Why icebergs are dangerous below the surface. One principle unlocks dozens of phenomena. That moment of understanding involves several things happening in the brain at once. First, there's pattern completion. Different parts of the brain that handle different aspects of the concept, visual, logical, spatial, start firing in sync. This synchronized activity strengthens the connections between these regions. Second, there's prediction. Once you understand displacement, your brain starts automatically predicting what will happen in similar situations. See a rock? It'll sink. See a log? Might float. Depends on the wood. This prediction mechanism is constantly running in the background, refining your model. But here's what makes certain insights special. They change the questions you ask. Before understanding displacement, you might wonder about specific cases. Why does this float? Why does that sink? After understanding, you start asking different questions. What determines density? How do submarines control their depth? The insight opens up new territory to explore. This is why some ideas are called generative. They don't just answer questions, they generate new ones. There's a deeper layer to this. Some concepts change not just what you know, but how you perceive. Consider the idea that everything you see is actually in the past. Light takes time to travel, so when you look at something across the room, you're seeing it as it was a few nanoseconds ago. Look at the sun, and you're seeing it as it was 8 minutes ago. Look at a distant star, and you might be seeing light that began its journey before humans existed on Earth. This isn't just trivia. It fundamentally shifts how you think about now. It reveals that simultaneity, the idea that things happen at the same moment, is more complicated than it seems. Once you grasp this, you start noticing it everywhere. You realize that when you're having a conversation, you're responding to words that were spoken milliseconds ago. The present moment is thinner than you thought. This type of understanding doesn't just add information. It restructures your basic intuitions about reality. The brain seems to have different types of understanding. There's shallow understanding, where you can repeat information or follow steps without really grasping why. Then there's deep understanding, where you can apply the principle in new situations, explain it in different ways, and see its connections to other ideas. The difference between these isn't just how much you know, it's how integrated that knowledge is with the rest of what you know. Think about learning to read. At first, letters are just shapes. Then you learn that shapes correspond to sounds. Then that combinations of sounds make words. Then that words carry meaning. But something interesting happens as you practice. Eventually, You stop seeing letters at all. You just see meaning. The process becomes automatic, invisible. Try to look at a word in a language you can read and not read it. You can't. The understanding has become so integrated into your brain's processing that it's no longer optional. This automaticity is powerful, but it also means that truly understanding something changes your raw perception, not just your interpretation. A musician hearing a symphony hears things a non-musician doesn't. Not because they're thinking harder about it, but because their perceptual systems have been restructured. They've trained their brains to automatically detect patterns, harmonies, and structures that others miss. Now, here's where it connects to this moment, right now. The act of explaining how understanding changes the brain is itself changing your brain. There's a recursive quality to it. Knowing that your brain rewires itself as you learn makes you more aware of that process. And that awareness can influence how you approach learning. It's like discovering that you can feel your own heartbeat. The heart was always beating, but now you're conscious of it. And that consciousness can even affect the rhythm. Some neuroscientists talk about metacognition, thinking about thinking. Humans seem to be unusually good at this. Not only do we learn, but we can reflect on how we learn, and we can use those reflections to learn better. This creates a feedback loop. Understanding how understanding works makes you better at understanding. It's a strange loop, the kind that shows up in consciousness itself. Consider what happens when you learn that memories aren't fixed recordings. Every time you remember something, you're reconstructing it, and in that reconstruction, you can actually change the memory. This means that remembering changes what you remember. Once you know this, you start noticing it. You catch yourself being uncertain about details. You recognize when a memory feels more like a story you've told yourself than a direct experience. The knowledge changes your relationship with your own past. Or take the concept of cognitive biases. Learn about confirmation bias, the tendency to notice evidence that supports what you already believe and ignore evidence against it, and you start catching yourself doing it. Not always. The bias doesn't disappear just because you know about it. But sometimes you'll be in an argument and suddenly think, wait, am I just looking for reasons to be right? That moment of recognition is your brain using its model of itself to check its own processes. It's like having a mirror that shows you not just your face, but your expressions as they form. The brain's plasticity, this ability to rewire itself, isn't unlimited. It's easier when you're young. Children learn languages, musical instruments, and complex skills with a fluidity that adults often envy. This is because young brains are in a heightened state of plasticity. The connections are forming rapidly, and the structures are still flexible. But plasticity doesn't disappear with age. It continues throughout life. It slows down, certainly, and it takes more effort. But it's always there. People in their 70 seconds and 80 seconds can learn new languages, take up instruments, master new skills. The brain never fully stops being able to change. What does change is efficiency. Young brains are exploring, making lots of connections, trying different patterns. Adult brains are more specialized. They've kept the connections that proved useful and pruned away the ones that didn't. This specialization makes adults better at things they know, but slower at learning completely new things. It's a trade-off. You gain expertise, but lose some flexibility. But here's a curious fact. Certain types of learning seem to maintain or even increase plasticity. Learning itself might keep the brain more plastic. There's evidence that people who regularly learn new things, who keep challenging themselves with unfamiliar skills or ideas, maintain cognitive flexibility longer. The brain treated as a learning organ stays a learning organ. Use it or lose it, as the saying goes. But the use here specifically means using it for learning, not just for familiar tasks. This brings up an interesting question. What's the optimal way to structure learning if you want to genuinely understand something rather than just memorize it? The research points to a few principles. First, spacing. Learning a little bit over many sessions works better than cramming everything into one session. The brain seems to consolidate understanding during rest, particularly during sleep. When you learn something, then sleep, then come back to it, the connections have had time to stabilize. Second, retrieval. Testing yourself, trying to recall information, strengthens understanding more than just reviewing it. This is counterintuitive, because retrieval feels harder and reviewing feels easier. But that difficulty is actually the point. When you struggle to recall something, you're forcing your brain to strengthen those pathways. Easy repetition doesn't create the same effect. Third, connection. Understanding deepens when you connect new information to things you already know. This is why analogies work so well. They take something unfamiliar and link it to something familiar, creating a bridge that your brain can cross. Once the bridge exists, the new concept becomes part of your integrated knowledge network rather than an isolated fact. There's also the question of attention. Understanding requires focused attention in a way that superficial processing doesn't. This matters more now than ever because attention is increasingly fragmented. Constant interruptions, notifications, quick switches between tasks. These all interfere with the kind of sustained focus that deep understanding requires. The brain needs time to settle into a problem, to play with it, to let different regions communicate and find patterns. Interruptions break this process. But when that process works, when understanding clicks into place, there's often a feeling of satisfaction, sometimes even pleasure. This isn't just psychological. The brain releases dopamine when patterns are recognized, when predictions prove accurate, when understanding emerges. This reward system encourages learning. It's why puzzles can be addictive, why solving a difficult problem feels good, why that aha moment is pleasurable. The brain is essentially rewarding itself for getting better at modeling the world. And here's something worth sitting with. The world you experience is your brain's model of the world, not the world itself. Light hits your retinas, but you don't see the electrical signals in your optic nerve. You see objects, colors, movement. Sound waves hit your eardrums, but you don't hear vibrations. You hear words, music, meaning. The brain takes raw sensory data and constructs an experience. That experience is remarkably good at matching reality. Good enough that you usually don't notice it's a construction, but it is. This means that when you deepen your understanding of something, you're not just adding information to your mental library. You're actually changing the world as you experience it. A person who understands music theory hears music differently than someone who doesn't. A person who understands physics sees motion differently. A person who understands psychology interprets behavior differently. The external reality hasn't changed, but the experienced reality has. This is why teaching can be so powerful. When you explain something to someone else and they genuinely understand it, you've literally altered their experienced reality. You've given them a new way of seeing, and often, explaining something forces you to understand it better yourself. You have to find the right words, the right analogies, anticipate confusions. This process refines your own understanding. Teaching and learning aren't separate. They're both forms of cognitive restructuring. Now, notice what's happened during these past minutes. Various concepts have been explained. Neuroplasticity, pattern recognition, the construction of perception, the integration of knowledge. But more than that, a perspective has been offered. That understanding isn't passive reception of information, but active reconstruction of mental models. And that this reconstruction is physical, measurable, real. If this perspective makes sense, if it's clicked into place, then something has shifted. Not just new facts added to old knowledge, but a new framework for thinking about knowledge itself. This is what certain insights do. They provide not just answers, but new frameworks for generating answers. They're tools for thinking. And like any tool, once you have it, you use it automatically. You don't think, now I'll apply my understanding of displacement when you wonder whether something will float. You just know immediately. The understanding has become part of how you perceive. So when the title suggested that, after watching this, your brain won't be the same, it wasn't hyperbole. The connections that existed in your brain before these words are not identical to the connections that exist now. Some synapses have strengthened. Some patterns have formed or deepened. The change might be small, might be temporary if the ideas aren't revisited, but it's there. It's measurable, in principle, if we had detailed enough scans. But beyond the immediate neural changes, there's the possibility of something more lasting. If the core idea resonates, if it becomes part of how you think about learning and understanding, then it will influence future learning. You might pay more attention to moments when understanding clicks into place. You might notice the difference between memorizing and truly grasping. You might approach difficult concepts with more patience, knowing that understanding takes time and that the brain needs to build new structures. These changes in approach could compound over time, making you more effective at learning, which makes you learn more, which makes you better at learning. Another feedback loop. There's something profound in realizing that you're always in the middle of this process. You're never finished understanding. There's no moment when your brain stops being plastic, stops rewiring itself in response to experience. Every conversation, every book, every observation is potentially changing the structure of your thoughts. Most changes are small, temporary, but some are significant. Some genuinely shift how you see everything else. And here's the curious thing about these significant shifts. You often can't fully understand them until after they've happened. Before learning that light has a speed and that means seeing is always seeing the past, you can't quite imagine what that understanding will feel like. Before grasping how memories change when remembered, you can't predict how it will change your relationship with your past. The understanding has to restructure your thinking before you can think from within that restructured framework. This means that learning, real learning, always involves a leap into something you can't fully anticipate. There's an element of trust that the confusion will resolve, that the pieces will eventually fit together, that the brain will do its work of pattern finding and integration, and usually, if you stay with it, it does. The confusion clears. Things make sense. Not all at once, usually, but gradually. And then one day you realize you understand something that once seemed impossibly complex. The brain is capable of this because it's not a fixed machine. It's a living system that shapes itself in response to the world. It's designed, if that's the right word, to learn. That's its primary function. Not storing information, though it does that. Not processing data, though it does that too. But learning, adapting, updating its models, getting better at predicting and understanding. This is what brains do. And so, having traced through these ideas, having followed the logic from synapses to perception to understanding to change, what's the takeaway? Perhaps it's this. Be conscious of what you expose your mind to, what you practice, what you think about, because all of it is shaping the organ that does the experiencing. The brain you have tomorrow will be different from the brain you have today. The only question is how it will be different and whether those differences will serve you. You're always becoming someone slightly different. The world you experience is always being reconstructed. Understanding this doesn't stop the process. Nothing can stop it. But understanding might give you some say in the direction, and that in itself changes everything.
Have you ever wondered why children learn a language so quickly? It's not because they're smarter than you. It's because they learn in a completely different way. Think about it with me. What comes to your mind when I say the word apple? You probably picture that red fruit, right? But then, why is it that when you're learning a new language and you hear in Spanish manzana, you think of the English translation apple instead of seeing the image of the fruit? A child doesn't try to memorize endless lists of words, nor do they translate every term back into their native language. They do something far more powerful. They link the word to the real image of the object, to a living experience. When a child hears perro, they don't think of the English translation dog. They see the animal running. They hear the bark. They feel the joy. That's how the brain connects directly to reality. That's why learning happens naturally. Now imagine you're learning a new word in French, Spanish, or Italian. Most people immediately reach for the translation into their first language. You hear macchina in Italian, and instead of seeing the image of a real car in your mind, you think of the English translation, car. And that's the mistake. When you process a new word by translating it into your native language, your brain doesn't truly learn it. The most powerful way to learn a new language quickly and effectively is to bind words to images. For example, when you hear car, immediately visualize a car, see the wheels turning, feel the engine, picture yourself driving down the road, rather than translating it into Spanish. Pay very close attention now, because what I'm about to share with you has the power to accelerate your ability to learn any language at a speed that might seem impossible. Here's the truth. The secret isn't in repeating words mechanically or memorizing endless lists. The secret lies in how you direct your mind. When all you do is read, listen, or try to memorize, your brain can trick you. It doesn't push itself. It prefers to spend as little energy as possible, convincing you that you've understood, when in reality, you haven't. That's where so many people go wrong. But when you try to explain something, there's no way to hide from the truth. If you don't truly understand it, you'll stumble. And that stumbling is pure gold. That's the moment your mind shows you exactly where the gaps are. Never settle for memorization alone. Aim to understand. And once you understand, explain it. That's the key almost no one applies, and yet it can multiply the speed of your learning by 27 times. Because the moment you try to explain something out loud, something extraordinary happens in your brain. The connections that were once scattered begin to organize. The simple act of teaching forces your mind to create order out of chaos. It's as if you had pieces of a puzzle scattered across a table, and suddenly you're compelled to fit them together so the picture finally makes sense. That's why you should always explain what you just learned, even if you haven't mastered it yet. Teach it to yourself out loud. Repeat it as if you were giving a class. And if there's someone nearby, dare to explain it to them too. Don't worry if it feels strange, because it's in that effort to organize ideas that your mind locks in the knowledge. Don't be afraid of sounding silly. Don't worry if your explanation comes out incomplete, awkward, or full of holes. The very act of turning thought into words makes your brain work on a different level. And in trying to explain it correctly, your brain automatically pushes itself to learn. That's when you leave the passive mode and step into active learning. And active learning is what separates the people who spend years struggling from the ones who learn in a matter of months. Each time you explain, even to yourself in the mirror, you're reinforcing confidence. You're telling your mind, I can master this. And that self-confidence is fuel. It pushes you to keep going, not to quit, to review until everything is crystal clear. So engrave this law deep inside you. Those who explain, learn. Those who teach, retain. Those who organize what they know, achieve mastery. This is the force that turns an ordinary student into someone who can absorb a language 27 times faster. Now understand something crucial. Without this, you'll never be able to learn another language. Concentration. Concentration is everything. Many people study for hours and convince themselves they're making progress, but in reality, they're just wasting time. Studying for hours without focus is wasteful. But 30 minutes of absolute attention, that's pure fire. Here's the key. Use short, focused study sessions with precise breaks. Structure your learning into blocks. For example, if today you want to study for 2 hours, divide it into 4 sessions of 30 minutes each with a 10-minute break between them. But during each of those 30 minutes, cut off every distraction. Silence your phone, close the tabs, and give your full attention to that moment. Think about it. How many times have you tried to study, but your phone buzzed, someone called you, or your mind simply wandered away? That isn't studying, it's self-deception. Distraction is the silent thief that steals years of your life. Every second you allow yourself to be interrupted is a piece of energy stolen from your dream. Focus, and you'll multiply the value of every minute tenfold. And here's another secret. It's not about studying more. It's about studying better. Organize your priorities. If you only have 1 hour a day, don't waste it on irrelevant details. Always ask yourself, what's the single most important thing that will push me forward right now? That answer becomes your compass. By concentrating on the essential, you cut out the excess, remove the fat, and go straight to the muscle of learning. Understand this. Concentration is not a gift only a few people are born with. It's a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it gets. At first, maybe you'll manage only 5 minutes of real focus, then 10, 20, 40. Eventually, you'll reach a point where immersing yourself in the new language feels so natural that you forget the world around you. That is the state where learning explodes, where every minute is worth hours. And no matter your age, your brain is always learning. That's why the very first commandment is this. How should you learn? Never by memorizing. Most people fail because they try to stack words in their head, as if the mind were just a storage box. But the brain wasn't designed to memorize. It was designed to connect, to visualize, to create meaning. That's why every time you learn a new word, don't translate it. When you learn a new word, picture the image of the object itself. If you learn the word coche in Spanish, don't think of the English translation. See the image of a car. Watch the wheels turning. Feel the engine. Imagine yourself driving down the road. That scene ties the word directly to experience, to the real world, without passing through the barrier of translation. In this way, your mind begins to understand the language the same way a child understands the world, naturally, vividly, without intermediaries. Now apply this to everything you learn. If you hear the word manzana in Spanish, don't think of the translation apple. Picture the red fruit shining under the light. Smell its freshness. Feel the crisp texture as you take the first bite. If you learn perro, don't translate it as dog. See the animal running through the park, wagging its tail, barking with joy. That's exactly why children learn a language 27 times faster. They absorb the word together with the image of the object, with the direct experience. Adults, on the other hand, have been conditioned to translate, and that extra step is like carrying a heavy backpack with every word you try to learn. It's slow, exhausting, and ineffective. The secret to speeding up your learning is simple. Go back to learning the way a child does. Connect every word to an image, to a scene, to a sensation. When you learn house, don't think casa in your mind. Picture a door opening, the smell of food coming from the kitchen, the feeling of being inside a home. And when you learn casa in Spanish, don't think house. Picture that same door opening, the aroma of a warm meal, the comfort of family inside. This is the central point of the method. Bring the language into your reality. Turn words into experiences and experiences into memory. The closer the scene you create is to something real, the faster your brain locks it in. So never forget, you can learn any language 27 times faster. No matter your age, no matter how difficult it seems. All you need to do is abandon the old crutch of translation and embrace the power of images, experiences, and explanation. That's how you unlock the potential that has always been inside you. Now understand this. The secret isn't to study for hours and hours without stopping. The brain doesn't learn that way. What really works is to divide your study time into 30-minute blocks of total focus, followed by 10 minutes of rest. In those 30 minutes, shut everything else off and immerse yourself in the language as if nothing else exists. That pause is not wasted time. It's what consolidates your memory and makes the learning stick. But remember, never try to memorize. If you hear carro, don't think car. See the car. Feel the steering wheel. Imagine yourself driving. And when you finish your study session, explain out loud what you've just learned. It doesn't matter if it feels strange. By teaching, you force your mind to organize what it knows, and that's when learning multiplies. Short study blocks, imagining instead of translating, and explaining out loud. This is the formula for learning any language at an astonishing speed. Now I want you to do something transformative. Write in the comments below the very first word or phrase you will practice today using this method of images without translation. Put it in writing, because when you commit, your mind takes it seriously. And if this content made sense to you, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because here you'll learn the way few people actually teach. Remember, focus is power, and whoever masters their own mind masters any language and any destiny. Close your eyes for a moment and picture yourself a few years from now. Not too far ahead, just enough for time to have already changed you. Now think about everything you wanted to do but postponed, the ideas you had but doubted, the words you swallowed, the chances you let slip away because fear spoke louder. Imagine yourself looking back in silence, realizing what could have happened if you had just tried. Your mind will try to deceive you now, whispering that there's still time, that one day you'll do it. But that's the oldest trick fear plays. It always promises the perfect moment, and that moment never comes. You say, "Not now," and the now disappears. And when you finally notice, time has taken with it who you were, what you wanted, and everything you could have been. Would you regret more having tried and failed, or having let fear stop you from discovering how far you could go? The regret of failure is light. It teaches, it strengthens, it matures you. But the regret of not trying is corrosive. It haunts you. It shows up in the middle of the night in simple thoughts that whisper, "What if I had tried?" The truth is that the fear of being wrong protects you from failure, but it also protects you from growth. It builds an elegant prison made of excuses. You say you're preparing when in reality you're hiding. You say you're waiting for the right moment, when the right moment was the first step. Fear convinces you that safety is wisdom, but that's a lie. Safety is just the pretty name we give to stagnation. Now imagine the same scene but different. This time you tried. You might have failed, fallen, even been ridiculed, but you learned, you grew, you changed, you felt life happen. Because the pain of failure is temporary, but the emptiness of regret is eternal. One day all that will remain are the experiences you lived and the ones you let slip away. And in that moment you'll understand the real failure was never falling, it was never leaving the ground. What paralyzes people isn't failure, it's fear. The fear of looking foolish, the fear of trying and failing under someone's gaze. But what almost no one understands is that the fear of being wrong is exactly what keeps you trapped in ignorance. Pay close attention now, because this is important. You don't learn when you're right, you learn when you discover why you were wrong. Being right is just the final result of a series of errors disguised as curiosity. People try to look intelligent, but that's exactly what makes them foolish. Because when you try to look smart, you stop asking questions. And when you stop asking questions, You shut down the only engine capable of taking you to real understanding: curiosity. The mind that fears mistakes doesn't seek truth, it seeks approval. And every time you seek approval, you hand the control of your mind to others. Now imagine this. What if you could make mistakes without fear? What if every mistake was just another step toward understanding, another move closer to the truth? There would be no failure, only progress. The problem is that the world taught you to fear mistakes as if they were moral flaws. Since childhood, you've learned that being wrong is shameful, when in fact, it's the clearest sign that you're trying. The truth is that mistakes aren't the opposite of being right. They're the path that leads there. Science, life, evolution, everything is built on trial and error. Fear, on the other hand, freezes the process. It makes you repeat what you already know, pretend you understand, hide your doubts. But doubt is the seed of intelligence. And whoever has the courage to doubt inevitably grows. So listen carefully. Don't be afraid to look foolish. Be afraid of looking too wise to learn something new. Real failure isn't being wrong. It's pretending you understand. Because while you try to protect your image, truth escapes through the cracks of pride. Now, imagine your mind as a laboratory of mistakes, a place where every failure is a sample, every doubt is a reagent, and every attempt reveals something that was once hidden. The problem is that people were taught to protect their ideas, not to test them. They live trying to preserve their beliefs as if they were sacred relics, when in truth, real progress begins the moment you dare to destroy them. Mistakes are the purest data there is. They don't lie. They show what actually happens, not what you wish would happen. Pay close attention now, because this is fundamental. Every time you try to avoid being wrong, you also avoid the chance to understand something new. A mind that fears error prefers to repeat what it already knows, and repetition is the opposite of learning. It's like trying to discover new worlds without ever leaving the harbor. You only learn when you're willing to take the risk of being wrong, the risk of changing, the risk of discovering that you believed in the wrong thing for far too long. Each time you make a mistake, reality shows you a little more of how it truly works. Error is the most honest mirror of truth. It reveals what you still haven't understood. Failure isn't the mistake itself. It's giving up on observing what the mistake was trying to teach you. An intelligent mind doesn't blame itself for being wrong. It collects data. It analyzes, adjusts, and tries again. That endless cycle of refinement is what builds real knowledge. People fail because they want to be right before they even try. But those who truly think try before being right. You only discover the path while walking, and when you stumble, the ground becomes the mat. Mistakes are the footprints of learning, the proof that you're moving, that you're alive, that you're exploring. That's why being wrong isn't weakness. It's an act of intellectual courage. The fool seeks to be right. The wise seek to understand. And the difference between them lies in how they face mistakes. One hides them, the other studies them. Do you know the difference between those who truly learn and those who only pretend to? It's the courage to look stupid for a few moments. Most people spend their lives trying to look intelligent, and that's why they remain trapped in ignorance. They're afraid to ask questions, afraid to admit they don't know, afraid to expose their own uncertainty. But what they don't realize is that every discovery began with someone willing to look foolish. Knowledge doesn't come from certainty. It comes from the curiosity of those who dared to be wrong out loud. Picture something simple with me. A child taking apart a toy. They're not worried about whether they'll be able to put it back together. They just want to see what's inside. That's the spirit that drives true learning. The problem is that as you grow up, you forget how to play. You start feeling ashamed of exploring, afraid of failing, anxious about looking silly. And then you trade curiosity for reputation. And when reputation becomes the priority, thought dies. The courage to look stupid is the purest form of intelligence, because only those who accept not knowing are truly capable of discovering. The brightest minds aren't afraid of being wrong. They're afraid of stopping their questions. What makes them extraordinary isn't being right, but the freedom to test the impossible without caring what others might think. People cling to the image of being smart, and that's why they never touch truth. The ego wants to be right. The mind wants to understand. and you must decide which one will lead your life, pride or curiosity. There's no room for both, because pride protects, but curiosity sets you free. So have the courage to look foolish, to not understand, to question the obvious. The mind that dares to be wrong in front of others is the only one that will one day understand what they never could. Now pay attention. Freedom doesn't begin when fear disappears. It begins when you act in spite of it. Because fear never really goes away. It only changes shape. It turns into adrenaline, into focus, into drive. Fear isn't an enemy to be eliminated. It's a reminder that you're alive. And every time you face it head on, a part of your mind expands. What once was panic becomes power. What once held you still now makes you move. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to keep going even while trembling. You don't need to be ready, you just need to be willing. The mind that waits for the perfect moment never begins, but the one that takes the leap discovers something powerful. Fear only existed before the first step. After that, everything changes. Fear dissolves in motion, because it's impossible to fear what you've already started to face. True freedom begins the moment you stop running, when you understand that what frightens you is in fact what will transform you. Fear shows you exactly where growth is hiding, so the next time you feel afraid, don't retreat, observe. It's pointing the way. It's the compass of evolution. Each time you face something you fear, something within you awakens, and that awakening never fades. Now imagine, a year from now you look back and see everything you achieved simply because you decided to act, even with fear. And you realize that fear was never the problem, waiting was. What separates you from freedom isn't fear. It's the silence of the one who never tried. So if something inside you awakened today, I want you to write this in the comments. I choose to act, even with fear. Write it. Because when you write, whisper, you declare. And when you declare, you begin to reprogram your mind to act. If this message reached you, leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notifications. It's not just a gesture, it's a commitment to your own transformation. Remember, fear doesn't disappear. It only changes sides. And from today on, it walks with you. You think you know how vision works. You open your eyes, the world floods in, and there it is. Reality, crisp and clear. You see a face, a wall, a car. It feels immediate. It feels simple, but you are completely wrong. What you think is a passive act of seeing is actually a computational miracle so complex it makes quantum mechanics look like a game of tic-tac-toe. The fact that you can see anything at all is, statistically speaking, ridiculous. You aren't seeing objects. You are decoding a chaotic, violent mess of invisible vibrations that are hammering against your face from every possible angle, all at once. And somehow, your brain doesn't explode. Imagine you are sitting by the side of a swimming pool. It's a hot day, crowded. A dozen people dive in at the same time. Kids are splashing in the shallow end. Someone is doing laps. A lifeguard throws a float. The surface of the water is a disaster zone. It's a choppy, chaotic mixture of waves crashing into waves, ripples bouncing off the walls, reflections colliding with disturbances. It looks like random noise. But now, imagine a super intelligent insect sitting in the very corner of that pool, just floating on the surface tension. This bug is blind. It cannot see the swimmers. It cannot see the diving board. All it can feel is the water bobbing up and down right where it is sitting. Here is where it gets insane. If that insect is clever enough, and we are talking about a level of cleverness that rivals a supercomputer, it could theoretically analyze the rhythm of those bumps and jiggles in the corner and reconstruct exactly who jumped in, where they jumped, how big they were, and what kind of swimsuit they were wearing. Just by feeling the choppiness in one tiny corner, it could mathematically work backward to build a perfect 3D image of the entire pool. That sounds impossible, doesn't it? Calculating the position of a dozen swimmers just by the way the water laps against a concrete wall. That is exactly what your eyes are doing right now. The light filling this room behaves exactly like that swimming pool, except it is not water, and it is not two-dimensional. It is a three-dimensional soup of waves. Light waves are bouncing off every object in the room, the chair, the floor, your hand, the wall behind you. They are scattering in every conceivable direction, mixing together, crossing paths, and creating a field of electromagnetic choppiness that is infinitely more complex than any swimming pool. And you? You have two tiny instruments, little holes about 1/8 of an inch wide that catch a microscopic sample of this chaos. Your eye is that super intelligent bug. It takes this jumbled mess of shaking light waves that enter through the pupil and instantly disentangles them. It figures out that this specific ripple came from the lamp, and that specific wobble came from the reflection on the table. It separates the waves that bounced off a red apple from the waves that came from a white wall, even though they arrived at your eye mixed together in a single beam of confusion. It is an analytical feat that we take for granted every single millisecond, and we can verify this complexity easily. If you look at a person standing in front of you, you see them. But someone standing to your left can look at a person standing to your right. The light from the person on the right travels across your face to the person on the left. The light from the person in front of you travels straight into your eyes. These streams of light are crossing each other right in front of your nose. They are occupying the same space at the same time. In a swimming pool, if two waves crash, they distort each other. But light? It is a linear wave system. The waves pass right through one another without getting tangled. It is a complete network of traffic, billions of information highways crossing in a single point of space, and yet they do not crash. People like to think of light as little arrows shooting through the air. You picture a ray of light leaving a bulb and hitting a book. That is a comforting mental image, but it is a lie. It is not arrows, it is a field. Think of it like a universal jelly filling the room. When a light turns on, it shakes the jelly. We call this the electromagnetic field. The arrows you imagine are just the direction the energy is traveling, but the reality is just a shaking, oscillating quantity at a specific point in space. It goes up and down, up and down. And this shaking is so elaborate, so layered with information from every object it touched, that the result is an influence that allows you to perceive a distinct reality while completely ignoring the light that is crossing your path to reach someone else. But here is where our arrogance as humans gets in the way. We think we see the world. We don't. We see a tiny, pathetic sliver of it. Going back to our swimming pool analogy, imagine that the water has all kinds of waves. Some are big, crashing waves from a cannonball dive. Some are tiny, high-frequency ripples from a raindrop. Now imagine our genius insect in the corner is picky. It decides it is only going to pay attention to waves that are exactly 2 inches apart. If a wave is 3 inches long, invisible. If it's 1 inch, doesn't exist. Your eye is that picky insect. The electromagnetic field is shaking with waves of all different sizes, but your retina is tuned, biologically, to accept only a very specific range of vibrations. We call this visible light. The waves we can see are roughly between 40 and 70 millionths of an inch long. That is it. That is your entire window on the universe. If the waves are a little bit shorter, we call them ultraviolet, and you are blind to them. If they are a little bit longer, we call them infrared, and you are blind to them too. But just because you can't see them doesn't mean they aren't there. They are crashing into you right now. Let's talk about those slower swashes. The waves that are just a little too long for your eye to focus. We have another name for this, heat. When you stand next to a campfire, you feel warmth on your skin. That sensation is your body detecting electromagnetic waves that are physically identical to light, just with a slightly longer distance between the crests. You feel the light rather than see it. But other creatures aren't so limited. Take the pit viper. This snake hunts in the desert at night. It has a specialized organ, a pit, that is sensitive to these longer waves. To a pit viper, a mouse running across the sand isn't just a warm object. It is a glowing beacon of infrared light. The mouse is radiating waves by virtue of its body heat. The snake sees the heat. We are blind to it, stumbling around in the dark, while the viper is watching a light show. But let's go even longer. Stretch those waves out further. Make them huge. These waves are still rushing through the room. They are passing through your body, through the walls, through the earth itself. We call them radio waves. And here is the thing that should keep you up at night. This room is currently full of music. It is full of voices. It is full of data. Right now, occupying the same space as the light you are using to read this, there is a broadcast from a radio station in Moscow. There is a signal from a GPS satellite. There is a song being broadcast from Peru. There is radar from an airplane looking for the ground. It is all there. It is all shaking the electromagnetic field in the room. The voice of a singer in London is physically present in the space between your eyes and this screen, vibrating the electrons in the air. You just don't have the machinery to notice it. Your eyes are tuned to the light channel, not the radio channel. But the physics is identical. It is exactly the same stuff. It is just a matter of timing. The wiggling of the field is slower for radio than it is for blue light. That is the only difference. If you don't believe that reality is this crowded, you can prove it with a piece of wire and a cheap box of electronics. We call it a radio receiver. The wire is just a metal stick. The electrons inside that wire are being pushed back and forth by the electric field in the room. They are swashing around like water in a bathtub, but they are swashing at all different speeds at once. The Moscow speed, the top 40 speed, the air traffic control speed. When you turn the knob on the radio, you aren't finding the signal. You are building a filter. You are telling the box, ignore everything except the electrons that are wiggling exactly 1 million times per second. And suddenly, out of the static, you hear a voice. The voice didn't just arrive, it was screaming in your ear the whole time. You just needed the right tool to translate the wiggle into sound. That is why the rainbow happened. Not because of a tank in mud, but because blue light is slightly better at bullying the electrons in the glass than red light is. This is the beauty of looking deeper. When you stop accepting the high school simplified version, you find connections you never knew existed. Who would have thought that the colors of a rainbow are directly determined by the mechanics of a driven spring? But this model creates a new problem. If light is just shaking electrons, and those electrons are re-radiating light, doesn't that take energy? Why is the glass transparent at all? Why doesn't the light just get absorbed and die? And what happens if you push the electron exactly at its resonant frequency? Does the glass explode? We've destroyed the tank, but now we have to rebuild the universe. And to do that, we need to talk about what happens when the math goes to infinity. If you thought this was weird, just wait until we talk about the imaginary numbers. We left off with a terrifying thought. If the blue light is closer to the electron's natural resonant frequency, it makes the electron wiggle harder. But what happens if you hit the resonant frequency exactly? If you tune your light to be perfectly in sync with that spring? According to the simplified equation we just built, the denominator becomes 0. And any math student knows that dividing by 0 is the universe's way of saying system crash. The equation predicts the amplitude of the wiggle would go to infinity. The electron would vibrate with infinite energy, presumably ripping a hole in space-time or at least shattering your window. Obviously, that doesn't happen. You don't see windows exploding just because a specific shade of UV light hit them. So, what did we miss? We missed reality. Our model of the electron on a spring was too perfect. It was frictionless. In the real world, you never get a free ride. When an electron wiggles, it is radiating energy 3. That secondary wave it creates, that costs energy. The electron is paying a tax to the universe every time it moves. In physics, we call this damping or a drag force. It's exactly like trying to run through water. The faster you try to go, the harder the water pushes back. When we add this drag term to our equation, it saves us from the infinity disaster. It puts a cap on how much the electron can wiggle, even at perfect resonance. But this drag does something else. It explains opacity. It explains why light doesn't go through a brick wall. If the drag is high, the energy from the light wave is chewed up by the electrons and turned into heat, rather than being passed along as a transparent wave. So, the very thing that stops the universe from crashing is also the reason you can't see through your own eyelids. The faster-than-light scandal. Now that we've fixed the model, we have to address the elephant in the room, or rather, the cheetah in the room. A lot of you have asked a very dangerous question. Can the index of refraction be less than 1? But wait, I hear you scream, clutching your copy of Special Relativity. Einstein said nothing can travel faster than light. You are breaking the law. Relax. Einstein is fine. The police are not coming. This is where you have to understand the difference between a phase and a signal. Remember how we said the slowing down was actually just a phase shift? A shifting of the wave crests backward? Well, under certain weird conditions, usually near that resonant frequency we talked about, the phase shift can actually go the other way. The interaction can kick the crests forward. This means the peaks of the wave appear to be traveling faster than c. This is called the phase velocity. But here is the trick. A continuous sine wave conveys zero information. It's just a monotonous hum. Beep, 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 forever. So Newton proved that the invisible rubber band holding the moon is the same one that smacks apples onto your head. Genius. But this created a problem. A big, wet, sloshing problem called the ocean. Everyone knows the moon causes the tides. It pulls the water. Simple, right? Wrong. If the moon simply pulled the water toward it, you would expect one high tide a day, when the moon is directly overhead, pulling the water up into a big bump. But that is not what happened. If you go to the beach, you know there are two high tides a day. There is a bump of water on the side facing the moon, but there is also a mysterious, rebellious bump of water on the exact opposite side of the earth, facing away from the moon. For a long time, this drove people crazy. One school of thought said, the moon pulls the water. Another school of thought said, no, the moon pulls the earth away from the water. They were fighting over who was right. Newton came along and said, you are both right, and you are both missing the point. The secret isn't just pull, it is difference. Gravity gets weaker with distance. We just learned that with the inverse square law. Here is what is actually happening. Imagine the earth is three separate pieces. The water on the side facing the moon, the solid earth in the middle, and the water on the far side. The moon's gravity pulls the hardest on the water that is close to it, so that water gets ripped away from the earth a little bit. That's your first high tide. The solid earth is further away, so the moon pulls it with medium strength. But the water on the far side? It is the furthest away, so the moon's pull is the weakest there. The result? The moon pulls the earth away from the backwater. It stretches the whole planet into a football shape. The water bulges out on both sides, not because the moon is lifting it, but because the gravitational field is tearing the planet slightly apart. But wait, it gets weirder. We have this arrogant idea that the earth is a giant, immovable rock, and the moon is a little pebble running circles around us. We think we are the center of the dance. We aren't. The moon is heavy. It is big enough to throw its weight around. The force of the moon on the earth is balanced, sure, but how? By the earth doing its own little circle. The earth is actually spinning around a point that isn't its center. Imagine a heavy father holding hands with his small child and spinning in a circle. The child flies through the air, but the father doesn't just stand like a statue. He leans back. He wobbles. He makes a small circle with his feet to counter the weight of the child. That is the earth. We are wobbling in a circle to balance the moon. We are throwing our weight around. This creates a centrifugal force that helps throw that water off the far side, adding to the tide. So the reason you can surf twice a day is because the earth is doing a clumsy waltz with a giant rock in space. This gravitational pulling and spinning explains everything about the shape of our world. Why is the earth round? Because gravity pulls everything in toward the center. Why isn't it perfectly round? Because it is spinning, and the centrifugal force throws the middle out a little bit, like pizza dough when you toss it. It balances out. Everything, the sun, the moon, the planets, they are all fighting this battle between the crush of gravity and the fling of the spin. Now, once Newton handed us these laws, scientists went on a power trip. They started measuring everything to see if Newton was as smart as he thought he was. They wanted to break the laws. The best place to test this was Jupiter. Jupiter is like a mini solar system. It has moons whizzing around it like clockwork. Literally, like clockwork. You could predict exactly when a moon would disappear behind the planet and when it would pop out the other side. It was the perfect cosmic watch. So, astronomers started timing it. They watched Jupiter's moons for years. They expected perfection. If Newton was right, the schedule should be flawless, but it wasn't. They found something disturbing. Sometimes the moons were ahead of schedule. Sometimes they were behind. And not just by a second. We are talking about 8 minutes. 8 minutes is an eternity in physics. The error wasn't random. That is the key. If it were random, it would mean the equipment was bad, but there was a pattern. When Jupiter was close to Earth in its orbit, the moons were ahead of schedule. When Jupiter was on the far side of the solar system, away from Earth, the moons were late. The clock seemed to slow down when it was far away. This didn't make sense. Does gravity get lazy when you aren't looking? Does the universe have lag? A clever fellow named Romer looked at this mess and realized something that shattered our perception of reality. The moons weren't late. The news was. We assume that when we look at something, we see it now, instantaneously. Romer realized that was a lie. He concluded that it takes time for light to travel from Jupiter to Earth. When Jupiter is far away, the light has to travel an extra distance across the solar system to reach our eyes. That extra trip takes time, about 16 minutes to cross the Earth's orbit diameter. So when we see the moon pop out from behind Jupiter, we aren't seeing it happen now. We are seeing it happen in the past. We are watching a delayed broadcast. Romer used those errors in the schedule to calculate the speed of light. Think about that. They used the law of gravity to find the speed of light. If they didn't trust Newton's law of gravity, they would have just thought their clocks were broken or the moons were weird. But because they trusted the law, they knew the error had to be a new discovery. This is how science works. It is not a list of facts. It is an avalanche. One discovery creates a tool. That tool cracks open a new door. That door reveals a new mystery. Newton gave us the math to understand the orbits. The orbits gave us the anomaly in Jupiter. The anomaly gave us the speed of light. The speed of light eventually gave us Einstein and the theory of relativity. It is a continuous, crashing process that has been running for 400 years. We are still in that avalanche. We are still falling forward, faster and faster. The universe is full of these invisible waves, these bending forces, these delayed signals from the past. It is chaotic, it is messy, and it is beautiful. You don't need a PhD to appreciate it. You just need to stop assuming the world is simple. It isn't. It is an intricate puzzle waiting for you to notice the pieces that don't fit. So next time you look at the moon, or the tide, or a light bulb, remember, you are watching a cosmic machine at work. If you want to keep peeling back the layers of this reality, you know what to do. Smash that like button, subscribe for more brain-breaking science, and let me know in the comments, what fact about the universe do you suspect is completely wrong? Let's argue about it. Never be ashamed to ask simple questions. While many try to look smart, it's often the ones labeled as fools, those who dare to ask silly questions, who uncover truths no one else has the courage to explore. All the great names in history, scientists, entrepreneurs, leaders, and thinkers have one thing in common: curiosity. It was curiosity that pulled us out of caves and carried us to the stars. It was curiosity that made someone look at fire and wonder, what if I could control this? Every leap in our evolution, every step in our story was born from someone who dared to ask the question others were too afraid to ask. Curiosity is the greatest human talent, the silent engine that turns doubt into discovery, ignorance into knowledge, weakness into power. Now let me ask you something. How many times have you held back from asking a question because you were afraid of being judged? That shame is exactly what keeps most people trapped in mediocrity. If curiosity was strong enough to pull us out of the darkness of prehistory, to help us create language, science, technology, and even explore space, what can it do for your life today? Curiosity is like an eternal flame burning inside of us, but too many let it die out in the name of routine, rush, or the vanity of pretending to know everything. True success isn't about looking smart. It's about having the courage to admit you don't know, and the humility to put yourself in the position of a learner. Now imagine something that could change the way you see the world. Most people just keep repeating ideas, copying opinions, accepting ready-made answers without ever questioning them. It's like they're all walking in a line, staring only at the back of the person in front of them. But the curious refuse to live that way. They step out of line, raise their heads, look around and ask, is there another way? Why is everyone walking in this direction? Pay close attention now, because this is where the power of thinking differently is born. Curiosity frees you from the prison of repetition. While the crowd settles for, "This is how it's always been," the curious are guided by a single question: what if it could be different? It's in this small detail that we find the great difference between those who follow and those who lead. Every successful man and woman you admire has this in common: they aren't satisfied with superficial answers. They dig deeper, investigate, explore. They have the courage not to believe the first answer, to doubt what seems obvious, to question even what looks unquestionable. Don't ever accept memorized formulas without deeply understanding why each thing works the way it does. That's the mindset that can revolutionize even what others believe to be absolute truth. The curious think differently because they dare to step out of line, and the curious prosper because they see opportunities that the conformists could never imagine. Think about this. How many fortunes were built by someone who had the courage to ask, "Why not?" when everyone else was saying, "It can't be done"? That is the power of curiosity applied to independent thinking. Those who follow the crowd only get as far as the crowd is gone. But those who think differently, guided by curiosity, carve paths no one else imagined existed. Are you ready to stop being just one more in the crowd and start seeing what others can't? Most people only see problems, obstacles, and limitations, while the curious see hidden opportunities in every detail. Pay close attention now. What sets great entrepreneurs, scientists, and leaders apart isn't just technical knowledge. It's the ability to look at the same situation everyone else sees and discover something entirely new. Curiosity turns barriers into hidden doors. When everyone says there's no solution, the curious ask, "But what if there is?" And it's in this simple act of questioning the impossible that revolutionary ideas, million-dollar businesses, and discoveries that change history are born. Think about Thomas Edison facing darkness. Thousands accepted living by candlelight, but he asked, "What if I could create a controlled light?" Think about Steve Jobs looking at giant computers. Everyone accepted they were only for a few, but he asked, "What if everyone could have one in their pocket?" The curious don't accept the world as it is. They imagine the world as it could be. And that imagination, fueled by questions, opens doors that seem invisible to ordinary eyes. Do you see the power in this? Curiosity isn't just a tool for learning. It's a lens that reveals opportunities most people ignore. That's why curious people thrive. While others complain about difficulty, they discover hidden treasures inside them. Now imagine looking at your own life. How many problems seem like insurmountable walls? But what if, instead of complaining, you asked, "What can I learn here? What opportunity is hidden inside this?" That simple shift in perspective can turn failures into springboards, losses into valuable lessons, and moments of crisis into seeds of wealth. The curious see doors where others only see walls, and those who walk through those doors reach places that only a few will ever have the courage to explore. Pay close attention now. Thinking differently from everyone else isn't a gift reserved for geniuses. It's a choice. Curiosity is the key that opens that door, but it takes courage to walk through it. Most people live trapped in repeated patterns. The same thoughts, the same explanations, the same solutions. But the curious break that cycle. They don't accept that's just the way it's always been. Instead, they dare to ask, what if it were another way? Now imagine something powerful. Everyone looks at a wall and sees only a limit. The curious one, instead of stopping, asks, what if I climb over it? What if I dig underneath? What if this wall is only an illusion? That simple mental exercise is what separates great innovators from the rest of the crowd. That's what it means to think differently, not being content with the shell, but digging into the core. And you can train yourself to do this every single day. How? First, don't accept ready-made answers. Always ask, why is it this way? What would happen if it were the opposite? Second, question your own certainties. The most dangerous ideas are the ones you never dare to doubt. Third, simplify. If you can't explain something clearly, it means you don't truly understand it. This is the technique that allows anyone to learn quickly and even teach better than so-called experts who overcomplicate what should be simple. Do you see the power in this? Those who think like the majority get the same results as the majority, but those who think differently, guided by curiosity, discover shortcuts, create new solutions, and find hidden opportunities. The crowd runs in circles. The curious draw straight lines toward the future. And now I ask you, are you willing to abandon the safety of following the crowd, to live the freedom of thinking for yourself? If you truly want to set yourself apart, you must turn curiosity into a daily discipline. Imagine this. Every day you wake up with a flame inside you, but if you don't feed that flame, it goes out. What keeps the greats ahead isn't occasional curiosity. It's living with it as a constant habit. Ask yourself, what didn't I understand today? What question was left unanswered? What can I investigate instead of just accepting? Practicing this daily creates a sharp mind, one capable of learning 10 times faster than average. Leonardo da Vinci made this a ritual. He wrote down questions, examined the simplest things, and broke down ideas until he truly understood them. You can do the same. Always carry a question notebook. Don't be afraid to write down doubts that seem silly. At the end of the day, choose one and go after the answer. This discipline creates a spiral of growth that never stops. Think about it. If every day you answered just one new question, in a year, you'd have more than 300 answers most people never sought. And those answers become fuel for opportunities, better decisions, and bigger achievements. Curiosity is like a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it gets. Turned out into routine, investigation into habit, questioning into a way of life. And remember, it's not about chasing perfect answers. It's about refusing to settle for the obvious. Those who cultivate curiosity every single day build a mind that cannot be stopped. Imagine with me something that could change the way you live forever. Every innovation, every breakthrough, every achievement that transformed the world began with a curious mind that refused to accept reality as it was. Pay close attention now. The curious don't wait for the future to arrive. They build it. It was curiosity that led explorers to cross unknown oceans, scientists to question dogmas, and entrepreneurs to reinvent markets. And it's curiosity that can lead you to create the future of your own life. While most people are content to repeat, the curious dare to imagine. While others wait, the curious take action. While others say it can't be done, the curious ask, how can it be done? That's the difference between those who merely survive and those who thrive. The curious not only learn more, they live more, because every day becomes a laboratory, every conversation an opportunity, every challenge an invitation to grow. Do you understand the power of this? If you choose to live with curiosity every single day, you will build a mind that cannot be imprisoned by routine, that is unshakable in the face of problems, and limitless when it comes to opportunities. Fortune doesn't belong to those who claim to know it all, but to those who never stop asking questions. Abundance doesn't come to those who fake certainty, but to those who are constantly in search of answers. So I want you to declare it right now, with courage. Leave a comment below. I will never stop asking why. because that simple choice, repeated over and over, is the seed of an extraordinary life. Don't forget to like this video to support our work, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Remember, curiosity